Meet Nimrod, the mighty hunter who defied God and founded the city of Babylon. His story is a fascinating tale of power, rebellion, and the consequences of disobedience. But what drove Nimrod to challenge the Almighty? And what can we learn from his tragic story of pride and ambition? Join us as we explore the captivating story of Nimrod and discover the valuable lessons that can be applied to our own lives. From the dangers of pride and self-reliance to the importance of humility and obedience, Nimrod's story is a powerful reminder of the sovereignty of God and the consequences of our choices. Subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking videos on the Bible, and share this video with your friends and family to spark important conversations about faith, leadership, and the power of humility. Let's dive into the fascinating story of Nimrod together. Chapter 10 of Genesis is known as the Table of Nations, listing the descendants of Noah's sons. In the lineage of the Hamites is where we find Nimrod. Genesis 10 verse 6 lists the sons of Ham, one of Noah's sons, as Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Then, in verse 8, Nimrod is listed as one of Cush's sons. This makes Noah, who built the ark, Genesis 6-9, Nimrod's great-grandfather, as well as making Nimrod the nephew of Canaan, the son of Ham who was cursed in Genesis 9 verses 20-27. In scripture and other religious texts, there is unclear evidence to suggest that the curse of Canaan was only on Ham's son Canaan and his lineage, or if it was a curse for all of Ham's descendants to be servants of Shem. Of all of Ham's descendants, Nimrod is the only one we get specific details about, which does set him apart from others in the genealogy. We are also told that the centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in Shinar. Crosswalk contributor Alyssa Rote mentions in 7 Things You Didn't Know About Nimrod that the description indicates that Nimrod was a king, and a mighty one if his territories included the famous cities Babylon and Nineveh. Several commentaries, including William Ewing's The Temple Dictionary of the Bible, suggest that Nimrod may be the Hebrew name of Sargon I, an early Akkadian king. Archaeologist Dr. Randall Price also suggests that archaeological excavations in ancient Mesopotamia provide historical evidence for Nimrod's identity as Sargon. From the little bit of what we are told in Genesis 10 about Nimrod, he had gained much traction as a larger-than-life character in other historical writings. Some scholars suggest that Nimrod and the Sumerian character of Gilgamesh are the same men. The parallels between the two are very interesting. Nimrod's rise to power is after the Great Flood, and as we discussed above, the name Nimrod might suggest a rebellion rather than an actual name. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the hero Gilgamesh seeks to kill the god that caused the flood and sets out on a quest to do just that. Upon returning, Gilgamesh claims that the people no longer need to fear God, for Gilgamesh had killed him. Dr. David P. Livingston, from the Associates for Bible Research, states, "The Gilgamesh epic describes the first God is dead movement. In the epic, the hero is a vile, filthy, perverted person, yet he is presented as the greatest, strongest hero that ever lived." This has a lot of similarities to how Nimrod is described. Although the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia states, Nimrod has not been identified with any mythical hero or historic king of the inscriptions. Some have sought identification with Gilgamesh, the flood hero of Babylonia, others with a later Kassite king, Hopt, Hilprecht, which is quite unlikely. The legend of Nimrod grew even more in the historian Josephus's writings. He wrote this on Nimrod. He also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again. For that, he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Sounds a bit like the Tower of Babel event from Genesis 11, doesn't it? The city of Babel, mentioned in Genesis 11, is often referred to as the original site of the city of Babylon. Notice that Genesis 10 verse 10 lists Babylon as the first kingdom that Nimrod established. It is not a far stretch to think that Nimrod was the ruler of Babel and the commissioner of the building of the Tower of Babel. Hollywood even took this interpretation in the 1966 movie The Bible, In the Beginning. Even the focus on the family radio program Adventures in Odyssey took this line of thinking in their Hidden Treasure album. The Babylonian Empire is set against the one true God of the Bible throughout the scriptures. From the Tower of Babel to the Babylonian exile to Revelation's mention of Babylon opposing Israel, Babylon is always there. Some rabbinical literature suggests that Nimrod even had conflicts with the biblical character of Abraham. There are several versions of this legend. One starts with Abraham's father, Terah, also known as Azar, was the vizier to Nimrod in Babel. Then upon the birth of Abraham, Nimrod requested that Terah sell him the child. So Nimrod might kill him because Nimrod had a dream that suggested that Abraham would lead to Nimrod's downfall. The story goes that Terah gave Nimrod a slave child instead, in which Nimrod killed the child immediately. When Nimrod discovered that Abraham had not been killed and had become a man, Nimrod sought him out and threw him into a furnace, which Abraham escaped unharmed. Later in the tale, Nimrod became involved in the war with the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, with whom Abraham defeated him. Even in other Arabic literature like the Masudi, Nimrod is mentioned as the first king of Persia, a king of Babylon, and is attributed to many building projects in Babylon and Iraq. Though the biblical mentions of Nimrod are limited, much of archaeological literature depicts Nimrod as a strong warrior and an enemy of God. We may never know for certain if Nimrod was the king behind the Tower of Babel or if he and Sargon or Gilgamesh are the same. However, the evidence, biblical and extra-biblical, all depict Nimrod as a rebel who set himself against Noah's God. Rebellion and tyranny followed his name throughout historical literature. If nothing else, Nimrod serves as a reminder. We must always be willing to ask ourselves, what will your legacy be for the next generation?